Hello again. I'm Angela Taylor, your host for Unlocking the Club. And today, I actually want to talk a little bit about gratitude. We talk about gratitude quite often on Unlocking the Club, but I have a little different angle that I want to dissect today. And it's because I had this amazing experience over the most recent weekend when I spent the weekend celebrating one of my best friends' birthday month with mutual friends from high school. And so a quick shout out to Mary Toy on your birthday. Hope you are having a fantastic birthday month. But we were gathered together in the mountains and had a lot of time to spend time in conversation with one another. And one of the things that I enjoy, as well as being in conversation with each other, is as we age, the depth and the context of the conversations that we're able to have and the rich discussion that ensues, someone sharing a story or a recent experience or some family achievements or things that we want to celebrate. And as we've been having these discussions, if you will, in the mountains, one of the nuggets that came up was the intention for us each to challenge each other, to pause and to actually receive a compliment from others by saying, thank you, it's true. Thank you, it's true. And what we noticed was that so often when we were complimenting each other on things that we achieved or things that were going on, or just little things that we had done for each other over the weekend, people kind of shied away from that compliment. And you can tell that there was a discomfort with actually accepting the gratitude that was coming your way. And so when we kind of started to implement this rule and making sure that everyone acknowledged the compliments that were coming their way by saying, thank you, it's true, it led to a lot of funny moments. But it also got me thinking about a limiting belief that I actually have around receiving gratitude. So on the 2-hour drive back to my home on Sunday, I thought about this. I couldn't get it out of my mind about how I actually show up when others offer me a compliment or share something that was meaningful to them that I may have done or may have said. And what I recognized was that over the years, I've continued to find those moments after someone shares their appreciation for me or for something that I've done to be some of the most awkward moments in my interaction with them. And oftentimes, immediately after responding, by either minimizing my role or minimizing the accomplishment, or perhaps deflecting or deferring the compliment or credit to someone else or to my team, right? I think we all have had those moments where someone says, great job on such and such project, and we quickly go to, well, I had a lot of help. Or the other thing that shows up for me in my response is trying to change the subject by maybe saying thank you quickly and moving on to something else or something that the person who was in conversation with me is doing or had done. And so on my 2-hour drive back to Boise, I had to think about this and I had to sit with it for a little bit. And I asked myself, why do I do this? And there were a few things that came up for me. First, I came to the conclusion that there's an effort for me to want to show up with humility, right? Or maybe even quite the opposite. I don't want to show up as being braggadocious. There's also kind of innate in me, like such a large part of my life has been being part of a team. I value being part of a team. And so I think some of the reason that I deflect or minimize my role is because of the importance of being a team player and knowing your role and being able to validate everybody's contributions. And then I think the last thing that I came to about why I have this limiting belief is that I found myself emulating others, people that were around me, my parents, other friends, or people that mentored me over the years. And as I was emulating people that I admire, I found that, the people that I am drawn to are those who are quite humble, enter all situations with great humility. And again, recognizing that we are never taught how to accept a compliment. We are encouraged to give others compliments and to share our gratitude, but we aren't really ever taught how to accept and to receive a compliment. And so what I realized is that I'm doing both myself and the person giving me that compliment a disservice. Just because you don't do those things to receive compliments, right? I do things because I'm passionate about them, because they're meaningful to me, because they can have an impact on others. But just because I'm not doing them because I want a compliment, that doesn't mean that I can't be grateful for those who take the time to actually see me and to acknowledge me and the work that I'm doing or the effort that I made. And so what I now want to do is to look at all of those as opportunities to validate others for their willingness to sit in gratitude, others for taking the time out of their busy schedule and day to actually pause and let me or others know something that was meaningful and impactful to them in their lives, something that I did that may have been meaningful to them. And I think that especially during these times over the last couple of years that we've been going through across the globe, I think that you just don't know what you can create by acknowledging and engaging with those who offer you a compliment, by saying thank you, by getting curious and asking them like what was meaningful to them and what resonated with them. You may give them a gift that you may not have been aware of otherwise. So while this is a work in progress for me, what I am committing to doing and what I'm going to be working on is first receiving the compliment and literally taking it in, absorbing the compliment. I'm also going to try to get curious about what the other person is truly trying to convey by asking them a powerful question, like what was important about that to you? What was meaningful about that to you? What do you really appreciate about what I did? To get curious about it. And then the third thing is to allow myself to actually savor the gratitude. And I think that this last one is going to actually help me and others stay in wellness. So when I think about gratitude, definitely continue giving others your appreciation. But when others give it to you, how can you find a way to say, thank you, it's true? So that's a little bit of something for you to ponder as you're listening to this episode. And I know one thing for sure is I am completely grateful for today's guest, who I look forward to being in conversation with. Our special guest on today's episode of Unlocking the Club is Kat Dunn.
Welcome to the Unlocking the Club podcast, where we host honest and direct conversations about journeys of access, personal truth, and reclaiming space. We share our truth so that you can find the key to own your truth, honor your journey, and reclaim your space. Grab your keys, your wallet, your phone, and invite your friends to meet you at the club. Here's your host, Angela Taylor.
Today on Unlocking the Club, I will be joined by Kat Dunn. Kat is a course building expert who has more than 19 years of experience creating learning and development programs for global brands such as Walmart, Verizon Wireless, Ocean Spray, the Internal Revenue Service, and the United Way. Kat's business building expertise has been featured on ABC, NBC, and CBS. Her company, Kat the Course Builder, or KTCB, is a full-service course building agency where business owners and professionals package their years of experience into high-level courses and programs. KTCB's clients, who have launched over 17,000 courses since 2015, include coaches, speakers, authors, entrepreneurs, and celebrities. And in a recent year, Kat and her team helped clients to earn over $18 million in additional income through their courses. Thanks for tuning in today as we unlock the club with Kat Dunn. Kat, thank you so much for joining us on Unlocking the Club today. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks so much for having me, Angela.
Thanks for joining us. I have been anxiously awaiting the opportunity to be in conversation with you. I had the great fortune to hear about the work that you were doing with Kat the Course Builder about 2.5 years ago, pre-COVID, like a world away, when one of my business partners, Stacey Parson, and I were considering starting to build an online course with a Dignitas agency. And Stacey forwarded me this email. We kind of went through it. You were getting ready to launch a mastermind course. And I ended up taking that for my own coaching practice. And it was the summer of 2020. Again, things changed quickly, but my experience with your course, and we'll go into it in today's conversation, was instrumental in where I am today and the things that I am trying to create with the Unlocking the Club platform. So I'm grateful to you for the work that you're doing and the commitment that you have to so many people. And I'm curious, like I just read your bio, but what else is missing? I know that you're more than just what I read. What do people need to know about Kat Dunn?
Well, I am a wife of almost 15 years, close to 15. I can't believe it's been that long, but it's been 15
Time
wonderful
flies.
years.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh my gosh, does it ever? I am the mother of a spunky 11-year-old, spunky opinionated 11-year-old. I don't know where she gets it. And I live in Atlanta. I've been here since I graduated from my alma mater the first time. I graduated a couple times from there, but I graduated the first time in 1994 and moved straight to Atlanta, and I've been here ever since.
That is amazing. Well, as we heard, you're doing a lot for coaches and business owners and celebrities who are trying to unlock their brand, right, through courses. And I imagine it's not something that was an easy industry to enter into, but I'm wondering who you've had to be to build this enterprise.
Yeah. Well, it's who I had to be years ago, right? The same person. So, what a lot of people don't know about me is that my very, very first career was as a journalist. I was a writer and was behind the scenes. And so, for a living, I had to ask the right questions to get the right answers. And I had to do it in a very short period of time and help the layperson really understand what a subject matter expert might be talking about. And I did not know at the time that as I was working with and writing stories about celebrities and famous people and doctors and all these other people, that I would come to use that same experience in what I'm doing now, which is helping people to learn what a subject matter expert has to say and has to teach them about what it is that they know best and how to really articulate that in a way that the average everyday person can understand and then execute on. And so I had to be the kind of person that wasn't afraid to talk to anybody. I had to be the kind of person that wasn't afraid to be under pressure all the time because I had a lot of deadlines to meet. I was expected to be excellent. I was expected to write brilliantly and articulate myself, both written and verbally. And so that's who I've had to be all these years.
So how are you able to be fearless, right? And to be able to show up in those conversations and not be afraid to ask the right questions at the right time?
I think you have to practice fearlessness. I don't think it's like this package that you can just kind of buy off the shelf. I think that you have to, from a young age, practice being on the stage, so to speak. If you didn't have that experience, it's a little tougher for you, which is why I forced my daughter out on stage, whether she wants to or not, I don't care. Because my mother didn't care and I turned out okay. Isn't that a great reason?
It works, right? The formula works.
Worked for me, but probably traumatizing her. But I say that to say that it comes from years of practice. And even if you didn't start out that way as a young person, you can always start today. And I, as a regular practice, I try at least once a year to do something I am afraid to do. And I mean, not just like, ooh, I don't want to go see that movie, it's a little scary. No, I mean like definitely afraid to do. So I cannot swim. Okay. All right. So the last thing I did that I was definitely afraid to do was whitewater rafting. And I was so afraid, Angela. I literally was in tears. I cried because you cannot get off. Like once you're on, you can't get off. It's like you got to go down this river, right? And it was like a category 3 river or something like that. It probably wasn't that bad, but they made it sound bad. And I was terrified because I saw people popping out the rafts in front of me. And I was afraid to hit my head, even though you wear a helmet. I was afraid I was going to hit my head. I was afraid I was going to drown. I was definitely afraid. But I forced myself to do things that I'm afraid of so that I can strengthen my resolve in fearlessness when I need to pull on that muscle.
I love how you were drawing that parallel in something in your recreational life, and being able to overcome that fear, and the processes that you have to undertake in order to overcome that fear, that are applicable to how we show up in the workplace or workspaces. That the fact that you're doing this on an annual basis of finding something that you're definitely afraid of and getting over it and building that muscle to be able to be fearless. What have you discovered about yourself in that process?
I've discovered that I'm stronger than I thought I was. I've discovered that I am willing to do things that most people aren't willing to do. I never really thought about it that way. I never really thought about, I never compared myself to other people. I really didn't. But in this space that I'm in, I come across so many different people that in my solitude moments, I reflect sometimes on or when people bring it up to me, right? When people bring up to me, and they'll say, wow, like you're so courageous. And I don't really think of myself in that way. Unless they're, my grandmother says she's 94 years old. She'll be 95 this year, God willing. And she says a line doesn't know it's crooked until it's next to something straight. Yeah. And so and I'm going to say just the reverse. A line doesn't know it's straight unless it's standing next to something crooked that needs to be straight. Right. And so I found that as much as in my moments of weakness and fear and anxiety, I still have more courage than most people. And I'm not saying that is the thing that propels me. That comparison is not the thing that compels me. It's the thing that reminds me not to be so hard on myself when I don't necessarily feel like I've dealt with a situation as fearlessly as I could have.
So a lot to unpack there, because I imagine from the outside looking in, like you are accomplished, so dynamic, so powerful, having a profound impact, not just on the life of you and your family, but on others and their lives and generations to come. What does it take to be courageous in those moments of knowing this, too much, those who much is given, much is required?
It takes a variety, it takes layers of things. For me, the first thing is an acknowledgement to myself. I have to be honest with myself first about the things that scare me most. Okay. Even if I don't express those things to other people, I have to be honest with myself about the things that either scare me or cause me a lot of anxiety. And I'll be very transparent in this moment about this. As I grew up, my parents really didn't talk with us about money, right? Money and credit, debt, any of those sorts of things. We didn't know if we were poor. We knew we weren't rich, but we didn't know really, we didn't have any consciousness really about that.
Yes.
And as I grew into adulthood and independence, I started to recognize my anxiety just around money in general. Okay. Understanding it, balancing it. When you're a young person, they present you all these credit cards and what do you do with it and all these things, right? And I found that as an adult, I never really dealt with the anxiety that money really produces for me. And people may not, well, they know now because they're listening to this podcast, but the more money I made, the more anxious I became about that. Right. And so dealing with it, I had to confront my anxiety around seeing so much money transpire.
Yes.
You think you'll be prepared for it, right? And you're like, yes, bring on the money. But honey, it was also over the years, it's become very anxiety producing for me. Having these huge tax implications, and I'm like, oh crap, we got to write a check for 30 grand. What? And my accountant's like, well, honey, you made, X amount of dollars. You okay? And I'm like, oh, okay. But the acknowledgement of the anxiety and the fear around it, so that I can self-talk myself. And so we talked a few minutes ago about facing things, right, that you're deathly afraid of. Well, I had to face my anxiety around the whole idea of money. I had to face it. And I had to deal with it. I didn't have to, but I decided to. Yeah. Let me just say that. It was a conscious decision to do things that I wouldn't necessarily, I could leave it to the accountants. I could leave it to the bookkeepers. I could leave it to all of those people, right? But I decided that I wasn't going to do that, because that's putting my head in the sand. That is letting the anxiety that's really unfounded and really illogical, letting something like that control this part. And it just wasn't gonna, it became a challenge for me, it became like, wait a minute, I'm going to let this thing beat me. I'm going to let this thing, continue to, plague and dog me. So I'm not going to say that I still don't have anxiety around money. When I go to have my meetings with the accountants and the bookkeepers, and I still have a lot of anxiety around it. And they know, they understand it. And so they're very nice about it, and, but the acknowledgement of it, and then taking the steps to deal with it. And so I just self-talk myself, and I remember who I am. And I say to myself, this is a true story. I have an affirmation, Angela, that is my go-to affirmation. I don't have like 1,000 affirmations. I've got really one or two, but the one is that I tell myself is, there is nothing that is going to happen today that me, God, and my family cannot handle. There is nothing that is going to happen, because it comes from a fear of lack. It comes from a fear of, because of all of the years of struggle, quite frankly, and not knowing where I was gonna sleep necessarily, not knowing how I was gonna pay my bills, how I was gonna do certain things, and that anxiety producing time in my life just never got worked out.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, because that's real talk right there. Like, that is unlocking the club to wealth building. So all of those things that may prevent us from actually living the life that we want. And I think particularly And I'm not sure if this is your experience, but as a Black woman in Black families, like, right, you hear this quite often, like how we interact and talk about money is very different. And I had a similar experience to you, becoming an entrepreneur and writing that first huge check to the IRS. And I remember writing that check, and my mother was in the room. And so, I just kind of mentioned to her in passing what the amounts. And she got nervous. She was like, wait a minute, like that's more than I made in a year, right? As a paraprofessional in the school system, what's going on? Are you going to be okay? Like, are you going to be able to survive? Do you need to find a job, right? Like, and I think what you shared is the truth for so many of us inside of different identities, but I think in the Black community in particular, of our relationship with money and how that may prevent us from actually leaning in fully and living the life that we want. And so whether it is, parents and generations prior to us not sharing, how they were doing, how they were actually finding a way to pay the bills to make sure that we had anything that we needed. Like, right. Like I know from years, and it was later on in my life that I found out like I thought I had everything I needed. We didn't have more than we needed. We had what we needed: shoes to play basketball, or, if I needed some money to go to camp. But how my mom would be up late at night trying to figure out how she was going to pay these bills, how she was going to be able to go to the grocery store, how she's going to be able to get us gifts at Christmas. And she didn't share it with us. And I know you've talked about your grandma and your 95-year-old grandmother and your mother and the impact that they have had on you. What do you think that you dealing with this fear and anxiety around money, what is it going to create for your daughter?
So I am trying to help her in a way that my parents didn't know how to help me. And I am trying to do it differently with her. I don't want her to fear money. I really don't want that life for her. She happens to be an only child, so she's spoiled by default.
Right, she gets everything.
She's spoiled by default. And so I am trying to help her have an appreciation for money, and understand that you have to work for it. But I struggle a little bit with the messaging around money for her, because on the one hand, there isn't anything that she needs. I mean, there's nothing that she needs that she doesn't have. She's never had to open the refrigerator and make a mayonnaise sandwich or, a Miracle Whip sandwich. Like, she's never had the experience of having to make cereal with tap water instead of milk. So she doesn't understand that. And not that I want her to have those experiences, but how do you help them to appreciate what they have?
Yes.
Which I think she's grateful. I think she is. She says, "Thank you, Mommy." I don't know. But I think, but not in the way that I think we were grateful. We became grateful. I don't think it's in the same way. So I struggle a little bit with how to help her have an appreciation when, my family didn't really go on vacations, so to speak, right? And for the weekend, we'll go to a hotel just to order room service and kick back and be girls and go to the spa and stuff like that. So that's her experience, right? So how do you then be like, you gotta, be careful with money. And I don't know. I don't want to give her messages that make her afraid to spend money or make money or have money. I don't know. So I struggle with that still.
And that struggle is real. I think that's a really important conversation to navigate because there's a lot of nuance in it, right? Like I remember reading years ago, The Millionaire Next Door. And one of the insights that I still think about to this day was that oftentimes, like if our generation has success, that next generation sometimes doesn't work as hard. Like, right. So we want to, like our parents did everything they could do to make sure we had an education. Like, right. You have 2 master's degrees from the University of Florida. Like they want to set you up for a professional career, right? So you can do well. And that sometimes that next generation, right? You want to have a house in a certain neighborhood. You want to have the cars. You want to be able to send them to the schools, the camps that you want to. Maybe don't have that same reference point about how hard you have to work to accomplish those things. And I think that happens when you don't have those conversations with them to let them know that there is nuance, right? Like you can appreciate what gifts you have access to and how hard your mom has worked to get you here and your parents have worked to get you here, but also to recognize that it's not easy and there's others that don't have those same blessings. But I think that nuance is delicate, and it led to me, Kat, in certain stages in my career to make career choices that I'm not sure I would make again, right? Like, so I was happy to have a job and a salary, doing good work and trying to have an impact versus going after a job with another zero at the end of it because I felt guilty for wanting more than I needed. Did that ever show up for you, or how do you navigate those questions?
Yeah, I try to pick my battles, right? And I feel like if I can, for myself and for my daughter, impart to her not necessarily things that she has no frame of reference for. She really cannot, like, no matter how much I talk to her, she really does not, she won't understand hunger and coming home and the lights are off or something. Like, she just won't have that frame of reference, right? Or your parents coming in and having to break your piggy bank, that those sorts of things, right? She doesn't have that. So what I try to do for myself and for her is pick the thing that I feel like she can have a frame of reference for. And that is pushing past pain, pushing past fear, pushing past anxiety, pushing past the I can't. Pushing past the I can't. So we're a fitness family. Okay. So we go around Stone Mountain, we go up Stone Mountain, if you're familiar with Georgia and the Atlanta area. And so we go up Stone Mountain as a family. And so there's a point when you go up the mountain where it gets really steep and quite difficult. And so my daughter likes to, Mommy, I'm tired, my legs hurt, and blah, 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 right? And so I basically just tell her, give her the long kiss goodnight treatment. And I'm just like, I don't care. You're going to go. How much further are you going to go? You told me you hurt. Okay, you got 10 more steps. You got 20 more steps. And I push her to go farther than she thought she could go, just to prove a point, just to say, now you see what you can do. Now, next time, don't make me push you. You push yourself. Okay, you push yourself, and I want to see you push past it. And then we get down, we'll do something special. Or I try not to reward her with food. We'll talk about that too. But, we can do something that she really wants to do if she pushes past physically. Because if you can physically push past pain, then it creates a mental, psychological toughness, I think, that will help her with whatever fears or anxieties she may have. Maybe it won't be money for her. Maybe it'll be relationships. Oh, God forbid. But maybe it'll be something like that for her, or whatever it is. I want her to know that she has it within herself to push past and get to where she wants to go.
Yeah. Like, I just triumph. Like, right, when you were able to triumphantly overcome those things, those fears, those obstacles that get in the way, and demonstrate to yourself and to others what you're capable of doing. It's such a powerful gift that you are giving your daughter. And I get curious, Kat, for you, pushing past I can't. I imagine you've had to do that quite often in your life as a Black woman, as an entrepreneur. What are some of those I can'ts you've had to push past?
There are at least on 3 occasions that I can think of that in my entrepreneurial journey that I said, I can't. I can't. I'm done. I can't. And they weren't at times that I was under a tremendous amount of stress. I wasn't traumatized. There wasn't some client issue. It was none of that. It was just, I was tired, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to go get a job like everybody else. I'm going to clock in at 9. I'm going to leave at 5. I'm going to mind my business, and I'm going to get, back in the first and 15th club. Okay. I just can't. I don't want to hear about anybody else's problems. I can't take on this burden. I can't do this. And so I can think of 3 occasions in particular that I was so dead serious about it. I went to my husband and I was just like, just know I'm done with this. And thankfully, in his wisdom and support, just sort of loved me back from the edge of that.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here looking at you, and I sense like, right, whatever those 3 occasions were, like his support, and I'm sure the support of a village of people who were in your corner was instrumental for you to be able to push past that pain.
Actually, I could only talk to him, because most people don't believe you when you say I'm done. Or when you say, they don't take it seriously. They see how resilient you are. They see how strong you are. They see how much you've accomplished. And they don't really see you or hear you. They're just like, oh, she's just going through this or that, or oh, it'll pass, or oh. And it doesn't always pass. And it doesn't always pass quickly or easily, or in the way and grace in which you have shown up. It's like, what if I just throw off my wig? I used to wear wigs. What if I just throw off my wig and just run down the street butt naked? Will you believe me then? Okay. Will you believe me then when that happens? Okay. And so my husband was really the only person I even really talked to about it, because I just didn't think that other people would even really take me seriously.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, how that showed up, Kat, was because people thought, who wouldn't want this job that you have, right? Right? Like you have everything that anybody could ever want. And deep inside, there were times in different roles where I was miserable, like, right, was exhausted, was feeling like I was beating my head against the wall constantly for opportunities, and wasn't valued with all that I was bringing to the organization. And to your point, couldn't share that with everyone, because from the outside looking in, you look successful. How does it feel to not be seen or heard or believed?
It's very isolating and very lonely, right? And for me, if I get disappointed, especially like in business, or if I feel those moments, it's because I tend to take on so much responsibility where my clients are concerned. And I do that because probably just because of where I've come from, and not having the support or not feeling totally supported, that sometimes I personally tend to, according to my team anyway, kind of like overinvest emotionally in my client success in a way that I don't have control over.
Yeah.
I don't have control over whether they show up in their own business. I don't have control over whether they do the things that we recommend that they do. And when they don't, if they don't succeed or do well, because everybody doesn't, I tend to take it very personally. Like I tend to be like, well, what could we have done? What can we do? And my clients and my team is like, Kat, we got 100 other people over here, and you worried about this one that didn't do what you told them to do in the first place. Can we move on? And it's that kind of, and I'm like, okay, I guess. But emotionally, so you got to deal with, no matter what you do in life, you still have to deal with you and your stuff, right? And how you present yourself, and even in what other people see as excelling or overachieving or whatever, you still have to check your motives and check why you're doing what you're doing. Why are you doing this? You gotta ask every now and again.
Yeah. Well, I wanna know why you do that, because it is true. You go above and beyond, and I've seen that quite often in my interactions of being in your mastermind classes, or of spending time on your Facebook page with your Facebook group, and here so often where people like, Kat, like, right, I posted something, you were up at 2 o'clock in the morning and gave me feedback, or you read this document and gave me feedback on it. In our masterminds, a 1 hour session that ended up going 2 hours because you stayed and spent time and we're trying to answer everybody's questions. And in a time and place where we hear people quiet quitting, right, of just doing enough, right? Like, my job is a 9 to 5. I'm being paid 9 to 5. I'm going to show up at 8:59 and change, and I'm going to leave at 4:59 and change, and I'm not going to do more than I'm asked to do.
Yeah.
What inspires you to show up that way, and why does it matter so much to you?
It's a little complex, I think. Number one, and it's simple at the same time. I want everybody to win. I want to see you win. That's really that's my motivation, is seeing other people win. And when they don't win and they've invested under my tutelage, I take it personally. Even if I feel like I've done all I could do. And I feel like I've gone the tough road, so maybe you don't have to. Maybe you don't have to come up as difficult as it was for me. I started with nothing. I knew nothing. I had nothing. There was no, rich uncle somewhere who was funding me and helping me to run Facebook ads or figure this out or understand this, that, and the other. I didn't understand anything when I started an online business. I didn't even think it was possible to make money from a phone. I thought it was stupid and for the young people, and I didn't understand how you make money from a phone. I thought it was just hocus pocus and get out of here, because I am a Gen Xer to my heart and core. We did not grow up with phones on our hips. We went outside, we rode our skateboards, we stayed out until the street lights came on. We having block parties was my frame of reference. I came of age, playing kickball and dodgeball and all of that stuff, kissing behind a dumpster, your first kiss, all that kind of stuff. Like that was my frame of reference. And so when all this, hullabaloo about online business and stuff came along in like 2009-ish, 10-ish, all of that, I really just kind of blew it off. And so I don't even remember the question, but I'm just saying that was I didn't understand anything. And I know what it's like to be vulnerable, to have something that you can share and teach people and not have a clue about the new landscape that's out there, because I just wasn't a part of it. I was in corporate, and where everything was given to you. I had my corporate stuff, my corporate card, my corporate computer, my corporate phones, my corporate, all this stuff, and the tech and all the stuff. And then bringing it outside of that, it was total blank for me. So I say that to say, why do I go so far, is because, especially for Black women, we don't necessarily have the same, we're not exposed necessarily in the same ways that other communities are. And we have so much to share, so much to teach people. And so that is how we ended up being an agency, because I wanted to serve people who were like me, your moms, your wives. You don't really understand all this new landscapey stuff and how to survive out here in terms of a business. And I didn't want them to have to worry about that. I wanted them to just worry about showing up. If you can show up, then you've got most of it won.
Yeah, well, you show up every day for your clients in a really powerful way. And I always say, empowered women empower others. And so your concept of when we win, we all win, is really important place to be as an entrepreneur, right? Where we are navigating these spaces where it is a zero-sum game. If you win, then that means I lose, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? And I appreciate that is the mentality and the approach that you have had with your business. And I can say again, as we were looking for instructional designers to help us with building online courses, it was powerful in a way that I can't even quantify. To have you on the other side of the screen, like, right, of sharing your wisdom and your expertise, the energy that you brought to the table, the care with which you interacted, which each of those boxes on that Zoom screen, showing up early, staying late, giving of all of yourself, and actually revealing not just like the work that you do, but who you were as a person was inspirational to, I know, myself, and I'm sure many of the others that we're in those classes with. And I think that is something that we don't often share with each other, right? Is the impact that you're having. Representation absolutely matters. We've seen it recently, right? Representation matters. And so to have you at the top of your game in this industry where people are able to get passive income, be able to build wealth in unique ways is really important. When you take a step back and look at what you've created, what is most meaningful to you about your journey?
What's most meaningful to me is that this work will continue beyond me. I cannot tell you how many people have found us, done a Google search and just found us, right? And they'll get on the call and they'll say, I was so happy to see a Black woman like doing this work. I was so surprised. I was so thrilled. I can't believe it, because they just want someone who understands their frame of reference, who can understand our unique challenges and perspective. And so that means so much to me. And the fact that we're helping people, we're playing a small part in helping people to create legacy. People are like putting their courses in their wills, willing the proceeds of what they make on their courses to their kids and their grandkids. And I'm like, wow, like we played a role in someone literally taking their experience out of their heart, out of their soul, out of their mind, and putting it in a tangible, packaged product that people can learn from all across the globe. And that is what gets me up every day. That is what makes me, keep going and building on what we're doing. And so it's quite rewarding to see these folks who just have an idea, who just had an experience, who said, you know what, I want to teach people how to overcome trauma. I want to teach people how to get into crypto. I want to teach people how to, start a business or whatever it is. And to play a small part in that's going to live well beyond me is more than I can ask for. I mean, that right there is what keeps me going.
Well, I'll tell you, you've raised the bar for how we all have to show up when we're trying to build our own courses, right? And it's nice to be able to refer to you as a model for what we all need to do to be able to be successful as well. But I'm curious of Like, how did you get from being in that corporate space and being able to know what was going to show up in your bank account on the 1st and the 15th to the courage it took to become an entrepreneur?
So it was, I didn't know I was becoming an entrepreneur. Okay. I have sold all kind of things and tried to jump into entrepreneurship in different ways over the years. And I remember when it became a conscious decision, but it wasn't like, I'm going to start a business. It really didn't happen like that. I remember it was my birthday, and we had 4 hours off for New Year's Eve. You know how to give you a half day off. Right. And so New Year's Eve just happens to be my birthday. And so I remember going to my manager asking for the other 4 hours off. I had all this PTO saved up and all this stuff, and I didn't think it was going to be a big deal. She was new, young, and she told me no.
Oh, wow.
She said that I could not because they might need me. That's the reason? Because y'all might need me? Are you serious? And in that moment and space and time, I remember thinking to myself, I can't. This is I can't. Like, I can't literally be asking for like time off. Like it sounded ridiculous in my ear and in my mind to be asking to take off for my birthday. It sounded ridiculous. And I said to myself, you know what? I'm not even mad with you, sweetheart. I'm saying to myself in my mind, you know what? It ain't even you. It's me. Okay. It's me. It's time for me to do something else. And I didn't know what that something else was, as stupid as that sounds, but that's most people. Most people run away from the thing that has paid them to this point. Yeah. You've been an accountant. You're like, I don't want to teach people how to manage their money. I want to teach people how to, string beads together. I don't know. And I'm like, well, why don't you teach people what you know? I didn't do it. I wasn't teaching people course building. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what was next for me. And one day, my best friend said, have you heard of Periscope? And I said, the thing that comes out the submarine? And she said, girl, no. Okay. She said, no, it's online, because she's into all the trends and all the stuff. And I'm not. Remember, I told you Gen X, and I'm like, I don't even want it. So I didn't know what Periscope was. She was like, oh, it's cool. You can go live. I was like, what's going live? She's like, it's where you press the button and you can be on and all these people. I was like, oh, you missed me right there. Missed me with that. Okay. Going live, like clicking a no. I don't even have nothing to say to these people. What are you talking about? So we can go on and talk about being wives and mothers and fun places to go with your kids. And I was like, I was so out of date, Angela. I couldn't even get the app on my phone at the time. My phone wouldn't even register Periscope. And I was like, see, I can't do it. See. But then one day, I still say she had something to do with it. The phone drops on the floor and breaks into like 1,000 pieces. And I was forced to get a new phone. And she said, aha, you can get Periscope.
No more excuses, right? No more excuses.
And no more excuses. And to this day, she teases me about it. But Periscope was how we got on talking about being wives and mothers. And one day people started asking about what we did in our personal lives. And I said, well, I build courses. I'm an instructional designer. And she said what she does and this, that, and the other. And people started asking me questions like, well, I'm building a course. Can you tell me how to title it and how to do this? And I was like, well, no problem. What you need, And at that time, I didn't even know what hitting you up in the DM meant. I was like, my husband don't even hit me up in the DM. Ain't nobody hitting me in no DM. I didn't even know what it meant. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
That's how green I was. I really was. And then I realized that like people I guess the word kind of got out that, oh, she'll answer your questions for free, And there I was typing. I was like, Laurel, I told my friend, I was like, I can't keep doing this. I was like, I got job. I got stuff I got to do. I don't have time to be answering people's questions. Like, well, why don't you start teaching people how to do it? I was like, girl, I don't have time for that. Long story short, I put out my very first course and I priced it at something that I didn't think anybody would pay. Because I really didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And I priced it at $500. And 11 people signed up for it. And my jaw dropped. I could not believe that I had just sold a course with my phone. Like, I couldn't believe it. And that was the start. That was what made me think maybe there might be something to this thing. That is the real story. And it wasn't like, I'm going to start teaching people how to build. No, it was like, let me put this thing out here and let me see. Ain't nobody going to buy this thing. And honey, they bought it. Okay. And fast forward 9 years later, here we are with an agency building courses for people all over the world.
Wow. From humble beginnings and that start, right, to, helping your clients generate tens of millions of dollars on an annual basis.
They're making a lot of money.
Yeah.
They're making a lot of money.
And I think the thing that resonated with me about your stories, we hear this so often, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. It is not easy.
Oh, no.
Right? So many people within the first year of starting a business fail, right? Because they're not willing to push past the pain, right?
Oh, yeah.
But I think what is really important is that in the moment in the workplace, whether it was around your birthday or other things that have been happening that leading up to those moments, that there were some triggers that so often we ignore that are like, this is not the place for you. This is not the company for you. This is not the industry for you. Maybe you want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe you want to try something else. Maybe you need another boss or another company. But so often we ignore those because we're getting a good paycheck and people expect us, right, to have that stability, or perhaps we're risk averse. And so I think it's really important to note those things that show up for you. And if you're not happy, being willing to try something else. And I love the story of Periscope. Periscope, gosh, back in, it really was around 2013, 2014, right? When that came out.
I can't believe it. I've outlasted Periscope. And I've never forgotten that young lady. I can't even remember her name right now, but I've never forgotten her. And I've never forgotten that moment. And so right before COVID, I took my daughter and a couple other family members to Europe, and we spent the whole summer in Europe, right? And I think about those times where I'm like, I was literally asking for 4 hours, and now I can take 4 months and just be like, peace. And we just were out, and we had an amazing time, and I didn't have to ask anybody. And for me, that is not even just the experience of it, the fact that I didn't have to ask anybody. Yeah. I just picked up my kid, and whoever else had some time off at the time was my mother-in-law and a cousin, and we just were out, okay? And that is the kind of freedom that not only do I want for myself, but that's what I want from my daughter. That's the frame of reference I want her to have. I want her to be used to freedom to move about the cabin. Okay. I want her to be free without somebody telling her, you can't go here. You can't do this. You only get 2 weeks off. 2 weeks off. What? Bye. That's not something we're going to do. That's not something. I mean, and for me, at this stage in my life, I'm not asking nobody to do too much of nothing. I just don't want that for me. So
yeah, I love that. I love that, creating freedom for your daughter. And I know there's something else that was really important to you to create and model for your daughter, and that was to be in wellness. And so I know inside of COVID over the last couple of years, you really became committed to your own wellness.
I did.
What was that journey like, and what was important for you and triggered you saying that this is something I need to do?
Well, what triggered it was that trip to Europe that I just talked about. Okay. Because I took my chunky butt, this is her right here, this girl. Okay. I took my chunky butt to Europe, and come to find out they didn't have Ubers like, man, they got them now, but they didn't have Ubers at the time like they have them now. So I had to walk everywhere, and that was the culture. and I was heavy and I was sweaty and I was hot and I was completely bothered because everything was tiny. Okay. And I was bumping into stuff and I couldn't take it. And so when we came back from Europe, I went and I had my regular doctor's appointments. I was having some physical issues, and my doctor said, let's test you for congestive heart failure. And I almost fell off the table. I was like, say who? Say what? And so I was like, I'm too young for that.
Yes.
Mm-mm. And that was probably the moment that, I mean, I was scared to death, and all of my doctors were saying the same thing. And that was right before COVID. Nobody knew COVID was coming at that time. And I decided that I was going to, my doctor made a referral, and I decided to get weight loss surgery. And I decided I was going to do it for my birthday. Okay. So it was December of 2020, when COVID hit, not knowing COVID was going to hit in the spring. So was going to be, prevalent in the spring. And everything was going to shut down. And so I had surgery that December.
Oh,
COVID happened,
so
2019. Okay. And then 2020, I spent dropping the weight. Okay. So for that year. And then when that year was up, I went back and had a mommy makeover. I had lost almost 100 pounds. Oh, wow. And decided that I wanted to fix what wasn't right. Okay. Let's just say that. And so I got a tummy tuck. I got lipo, I had a breast lift, and I did it all in one surgery, all at one time. Took me a few months to recover, had a little complication, but poof, here I am, 100 pounds lighter, lost the wig. I lost 100 pounds. I lost a whole bunch of stuff. But I gained.
And you gained, what did you gain as a result?
I gained, a new me. I hired a personal stylist. Her name is Slay by Shay. She's amazing. And she got me looking cute. She helped me with my new style. I feel better. I'm walking lighter. I'm healthier. All my hormone levels are normal. I don't have all the pain and aches and all of that. And I'm ready to go back to Europe now that it's back open. And I'm ready to go back to the Arc de Triomphe in Paris, feeling triumphant in my physical being. So yeah, I gained a lot of confidence, and it wasn't not confidence in losing in how I look, not because of how I look now. It's because I did something that I was afraid to do.
Yes. So, kudos to you. And you've always been beautiful inside and out, right? And now you're living your life in wellness. And I think so often body image is a big deal, like in the United States in particular, right? But I think in the Black community and for Black women. And so oftentimes, right, being overweight is not necessarily about overeating. Everyone suspects, like, right, you're not active, you're eating too much, but there's more behind it. Were you able to discover what was behind the weight gain over years?
In the words of Medea, life. I had a kid much older than I think the average. I had my daughter at 41. I was already sort of, I don't know, just past my prime, so to speak. And so it was harder to lose the weight after the kid, not knowing how to eat. And I always say, if I knew all this stuff that I learned during the bariatric, procedure, in that time in my life, I probably wouldn't have gained the weight that I did if I knew all those things. But part of it was just lack of knowledge. They just tell you to push away from the table and do more exercise, but that didn't help me. None of that really helped me a lot. Even after Europe, I had lost like 7 pounds over there just because I had to walk everywhere, but I was still considered morbidly obese. And then I lost another 12 pounds and I was still considered morbidly obese. And I was just discouraged. I was just completely discouraged.
Yeah, yeah. Well, again, kudos to you for pushing past the pain and leading into what the possibilities were. I think so important for all of us, particularly as women, as we do grow older and wiser, is to prioritize our health. So often, as we become caretakers or in that sandwich generation where we're taking care of our kids and of our parents, we're prioritizing everybody else and prioritizing work, and our health goes to the wayside. Was at the View out in New York about a year ago this time, and Gabrielle Union was on the View, and she talked about an episode where she contemplated suicide, and she realized that her hormones were imbalanced, and that she hadn't had like a battery of tests for years, because doctors weren't prescribing it. Like, right, you go in and now it feels like your annual checkup is 10 minutes. It used to be 15 minutes last year, it was 20 minutes the year before, and now it's a drive-by, right?
That's
and so
right.
we have to ask for those tests, the full battery of tests. We have to ask for those things and be our own advocate for our health and wellness. And I appreciate how you're modeling that. And you can just tell what you gained was a fresh perspective and this new energy and vigor for your life. And so grateful for you sharing that story, and know it wasn't easy, right, to get to where you are. But I'm sure it was worth the journey.
Well, the prioritization is where it's really at, because so many of us, Black women in particular, we are conditioned to put other people first because we've had to, especially in this country where we for generations have had to take care of other people's kids and other people's families and other people, and not take care of ourselves. And so we died early. We suffered tremendously, physically, and we passed that down from generation to generation, that idea of not taking care of yourself. And then when integration of schools and all of that came, then it became get a good education so you can get a good job, right? So then we killed ourselves in school, and then we killed ourselves on other people's jobs, and we still didn't take care of ourselves, even though we were better off, and so now we're having to revisit those things. And I am 52 years old, and I say, I'm not my mother's 52. I'm not my grandmother's 52. Okay. I'm my 52. I'm my version of 50. And I'll be 53 years old this year. And I say, you know what? I'm in the best health and physical fitness of my life. I can run 5 miles without stopping. I can breathe. I can, I'm stronger. I go to strength classes, all of those things, just because, I want to push past just being mediocre. That's part of it too. Part of it is I don't believe in doing anything in a mediocre way. If you're going to do it, even if you have to pay somebody to do it, because you can only do it in a media, like me, like cleaning my house. I'm not a big domestic type person, right? Like, seriously, my grandmother would kill me, because she would like the lint, the dryer lint,
Yes.
If she comes to your house and sees that there's dryer lint in that little filter thing, she's like, oh my God, you're nasty. And I'm like, oh my God, so that's the standard that so I don't even fool with it. I let people clean the house because I want it done in an excellent way. I just don't believe but that was what was instilled in me as a Black woman. And most of us as Black people, we know we have to do everything twice as good, but I get to choose what I want to be twice as good at. Okay. I'm not going to be twice as good for me personally, on your job anymore. I did that for years and years. We had to be better, faster, stronger, and still, run up against all of these barriers and blockades and all this other kind of, foolishness. But, so yeah.
No, I think that's important, right? Not only being able to choose what you want to be twice as good at. What Stacey and I say with the Dignitas agency is, like, if you are going to be twice as good, make sure you're getting paid twice as much for the work that you're doing. Okay.
Believe that. And I said, you know what? doing and making these choices, and I thought I was making good money at the time, Angela. Well, I was, I guess, I was what the expectation was, you know what I mean, for Black people and Black women. It's like, oh, you're making six figures and you got the corporate car and you got the corporate card and you got all this stuff until you're making seven figures a year, right? And then you're like, crap, I can do this. I don't have to just live in a way that under other people's expectations. Like I literally don't have to do that. Oh, OMG, like who would have thought? And while I was in my cubicle sitting there filling out paperwork to take off 4 hours, it never occurred to me that 10 years later, I would be making more money than if they had promoted me to CEO. It never occurred to me at that time. And so I would just, say that if there's something that is in your mind and heart and soul to do, even if you don't have all the answers, I know I didn't. You still have to put one foot in front of the other in order to walk. Okay, you still have to, and my grandmother and my mother tell the story of how I started walking. How I started walking as a baby. Okay, they still tell this story, and I hold on to it with everything. They said that I was at a children's party. One of my cousins was having a party, and I had not started walking yet. And they said that I sat there and I watched all the other kids running past me and walking and having a good time. And I just stood up and started walking. And that is how I started walking. Not because somebody said, come on, you can do it. You can. I didn't do that. I didn't do any of that. I just stood up and started walking. And I think, Angela, I've been like that my whole life. I don't want to, just watch other people running past me and having a party, and I can't be a part of that party. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to walk. Nobody's going to pass me with the party. I can tell you that. And so, get in, jump into the party. Jump into the party. Don't sit back and let other people have all the fun and have all the things, and you just sit back and be a passive observer and be fearless and get up and put one foot in front of the other and just start walking, even if you're a baby in it.
Mm. And that's what you've done. Jump into the party, put one foot in front of the other and start walking from Periscope, right? When you drop the phone and now have no excuse not to have Periscope on your phone, to being able to build an empire with Kat, the course builder. And this has been fantastic. I have so many more questions for Kat here on Unlocking the Club. We're going to be right back in a moment with the back nine. Do you want to stop feeling like you have little to no control over your life's journey and instead amplify your life's purpose? You all know me as Angela Taylor, host of the Unlocking the Club podcast, but I am also a business, career, life, and leadership coach, helping my clients to live their best life. Every day, I help my clients discover what they truly want in life, and then unlock the club on how they can live their best life. If you're like many of my clients, you have found yourself over the years prioritizing everyone else and everything else. Your job, your significant other, your family, your friends, your community, the list goes on and on. Well, I'm here to tell you the best thing you can do for others is to invest in yourself. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't need to succumb to the fear of failure. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need to feel like you're being selfish. You simply need to prioritize you. You may be thinking that coaching is for other people, but trust me when I say that we all could benefit from a good coaching relationship. Together, we'll build a plan to help you amplify your gifts, clarify your goals, and accelerate your journey toward the life you desire. which may be finding financial wealth, spiritual health, relationship success, and or freedom and flexibility. You no longer have to feel like you aren't welcome into someone else's club. Let me empower you to leverage all of your extraordinary gifts and create your own club. Head on over to unlockingtheclub.com to book a free 20-minute introductory call to learn more about our Unlocking Your Journey coaching packages, or use code UNLOCK to get a 15% discount on the 6-month coaching package. Today is the day to invest in yourself. Let's unlock your journey. Hey everyone, I'm Angela Taylor, your host on Unlocking the Club. I'm in conversation with the amazing Kat Dunn, who is jumping into the party and getting things done with her course building agency. If you are interested in building an online course, Kat the Course Builder is the agency that you want to work with. But we're going to find out a little bit more about Kat and the journey that she's been on here on the Back Nine. Kat, we love the Back Nine. We just ask a series of questions with all of our guests to find out a little bit more about you. And I'm curious, you talked a lot about the work you've done, the journey that you've been on. Besides your own home, what is the place that you feel safest to be yourself?
I don't think it's a physical place. But with my husband's face kind of came to mind. In his presence is where I feel probably the safest to be myself.
That's powerful, powerful. And that you intimated that before, like, right, when you were stuck and there weren't a lot of people you can talk to, but he was there to listen and hear you where you felt like you were seen. So important for us to have and to know who that is. It could be a group of girlfriends, it could be your spouse, it could be your parents or siblings, but hold on to those people that are there for you and that see you and that hear you, particularly in those times of need. What's a situation that you walk into with trepidation?
Client meetings. Client meetings.
What is it? Yeah,
because I don't know what they're going to say. I because I told you, I want them to win. And so if they falter, like, I just want to try to, fix and pick up. And so client meetings, I'm probably the most nervous about, because I don't know what they're going to tell me. I want them to tell me that they're winning. I want them to tell me that this month they're winning, that this month they made, $10,000 more than they made last month. And if they don't, like, I don't know, it gives me anxiety. So.
Because it matters to you and you care, and that's evident. So it's much appreciated as a client. I'm curious if there was something previously along your journey that you hid, but that now you refuse to hide. Was there anything that now you are open to and about?
I would say probably sharing more of my family than I was probably willing to do in the beginning. I didn't share a lot about what my husband and I like going out or what we do or my kid or like on social. You pretty much only saw me, in the beginning, but that has changed over time.
Yeah, I know for myself, right? I am a Hall of Fame compartmentalizer, like here's Angela at work and here's Angela at home. And oftentimes the two don't collide. But I think that being able to reveal yourself is empowering to a certain extent, so that you don't have these two lives that you're living. And it's so much of who you are. What's your superpower? What's that attribute or ability that allows you to make an impact?
I would say my ability to articulate what other people have a hard time getting out. And I kind of go back to my journalism days. People, I come across so many brilliant minds. But sometimes they're so brilliant, like they might be scientists, doctors. We work with a lot of doctors, attorneys, and all kinds of different people. And being able to take what they want to say and make it palatable and consumable for regular everyday people. That's pretty it comes easily to me.
Yeah, it's amazing to observe as well. I remember on some of those mastermind calls, like, right, people would put in, a 2-paragraph summary of what they were doing, and you were like, give me a couple seconds, get a sheet of paper, and you're down jotting, moving things around, and then you come back with a succinct, pithy statement that was so powerful that the rest of us in the class were like, oh my gosh, that's it. So that definitely, I can see that being your superpower. Well, and with all these amazing people that you're working with, scientists and doctors and attorneys, when you think about the world that we live in currently and the spaces that you are navigating through your agency, what story needs to be told, particularly through the lens of the Black woman?
How to survive with grace and freedom to speak your mind and overcoming some of the most gut-wrenching stories that when people tell me that they're going to teach people how to overcome trauma, that makes me nervous, because what they tell me haunts me for years. I mean, I don't know that I could survive it. Okay. I mean, honestly. And they probably would tell you the same thing. But that needs to be shared with the world. People, Black women in particular, need to understand how to deal with trauma, and not just trauma in our own existence, but generational trauma as Black women being systematically violated for years and centuries, and not having a voice or say over not even our physical being. Like, I can't even understand or comprehend a person, an individual, being able to come into your dwelling place and violate you and your children and your family, and what that does to generations of women, right? And we carry that with us, all of us. I think, whether we acknowledge it or not, we carry it, and it comes out, and that voice, our voices have to be heard in terms of how to survive corporate America, how to overcome trauma, how anything that you can think of. Those voices need to be heard, because we weren't heard or cared about for so long.
Yes. Amen. Right. That is the club that we need to unlock. And that is one of the reasons for this show, is because I think so often, right, there's all these stories that our mothers and our grandmothers and our great grandmothers, right, these things that they went through, that we have no idea of those stories or those moments, but it lives in us. Like, it's embedded in our soul, and it impacts how we're able to show up and how we're able to love and how we're able to live. And so important that we share these stories in a way that we take away the power and the pain of those stories, and model something else for the generations to come. So thanks for sharing that. I think that is a really important story that needs to be shared. When you think about that generational trauma for you, for Black women, how do you center yourself?
Well, for one, I keep coming back to my husband, but my husband is from Africa, and I didn't plan to marry an African man, but I'm so glad that I did, because I did that. I've had the occasion to go to Africa several times. We have a business there. We have, of course, relatives there. My daughter, she hasn't been there yet, but she's exposed to the culture of that country and area that he's from. And so that has been probably the single most empowering and healing part of dealing with the trauma is seeing where we came from. Even though our history was stolen from us, we still can go back to this amazing place with these beautiful, beautiful people. And that is very centering for me. So I'm looking forward to going back again, because it helps me to feel connected.
Yeah. Finding your roots give you that foundation that I think that many of us haven't had for most of our lives, right? Being able to know who you are, where you're from, the people that you're from, those stories that we may never get the details, but we'll get the essence of what our family's journey has been. When you're at your best, Kat, and however you want to define being at your best, what is true for you?
At my best, I probably don't care what people think about me. And that's practiced too. But I'm at my best when I try not to put too much stock into what anybody is thinking about me at any given time, especially when I'm on stage, especially when I'm front and center and everybody's looking. I try to purposefully, on purpose, not give a crap. And that gives me the freedom that I need to be my best and at my best. I allow myself, I give myself permission to not care.
Yes. Giving yourself permission, and what you said earlier of the grace and the space, right? To allow yourself not to care. And I'm not sure if it's the same for you, but turning 50, I remember decades ago when Oprah turned 50 and she just said, look, I'm living my best life. There's something freeing where you're like, I don't care. I don't care what other people think.
Well, part of it is that we spend so much time having to prove ourselves, having to prove that we belong in the room, right? And thankfully, I am no longer in a place where I have to prove that I belong in the room. You get what I'm saying? And so, but what I would say to that is, even if you feel like you still have something to prove, behave as if you don't. Behave as if you don't. Like, go in there and just do you. Be as brilliant and amazing and beautiful as you are, without feeling like I'm here to prove something. You have nothing to prove. You have nothing to prove. You know, give it your best, be excellent, but not because you have to prove something, just because that's who you are. And being who you are, it's got to be enough. It's enough. It's enough. Who you are is enough. It's enough. And give yourself permission to just be enough.
Yes. And we have to listen to Kat on this, because she's not just happy to be in the room. You own the room, right? And you are opening that room and unlocking it for others to be able to come in and to be able to have their own room, their own space, and their own dream, and to see those come to life. And so I'm curious, as we get ready to wrap up the conversation, is where can people find you, Kat? And what are any projects that you and your team are working on?
So they can find me. You can find me at katthecoursebuilder.com, just like it sounds, all spelled out. That's Kat with a K. You can also find me at KD Course Builder across social media on Instagram, Facebook. You can find me, Kat Dunn, right there. I will respond to you. I check my own Facebook. So you could send me a message, and go to katthecoursebuilder.com, and you can, get a sense of what we do and how we do it. And if you'd like to work with us, there's some information on how to do that. And I am super, super excited about one of our newest projects that we're doing with Eat Okra, which is the premier Black restaurant association in the country. And we are helping them to build a learning academy for Black-owned restaurants in collaboration with Uber Eats. So we're super excited about that project and others that we're doing. But we work with the regular everyday entrepreneur, but also companies as well. So yeah, we're super excited about that.
That is amazing, and have to be on the lookout for that for sure, because there's so many talented chefs, right, and restaurateurs that, again, they can unlock their future with the guidance of what you were creating with the partnership. Kat, it has been an honor and a pleasure to be in conversation with you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Again, I am someone who is benefiting greatly personally from the work that you and your team are doing in the course building industry. Thanks for being vulnerable today, for sharing your story, and for unlocking so many stories and truths for our listeners today. As Kat shared, you can find her on our show notes. We'll have her Twitter and Instagram account, her website, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see it scrolling at the bottom of the screen. But Kat, thank you for your time today, and can't wait to hear what's next for you.
Thank you so much for having me, Angela. It has been amazing. It's been a pleasure and humbling, and so I appreciate it.
Wow. Another remarkable conversation with an amazing individual doing some really impactful and powerful work in the course building industry. As your host, Angela Taylor, here on Unlocking the Club, thank you all for listening into this particular episode. As I was thinking and listening to this conversation with Kat, I was thinking about how being in conversation with her made me feel. And I was reminded of the great Queen's quote, Maya Angelou's quote, people will forget what you said, but people will never forget what you did or how you made them feel. And as I'm listening to this conversation with Kat, I feel the possibilities that if you do lean in, if you do push past the pain and trust yourself and navigate your spaces with grace and give yourself a chance to live fully and freely, gosh, anything is possible. And one of the things that I appreciate is Kat sharing that, there's nothing that is going to happen today that she or her family can't handle. And I think that is the case that for so many of us, is that we are part of an amazing village of people that we just need to lean on from time to time. And that's one thing that I'm going to take away from this. I'm going to be grateful and in gratitude for all of the people that are here for me and that support me. But I'm also going to remember in those moments where things get difficult or anxiety or fear shows up, that I can push past that concept of I can't and remember all the things that I've been able to accomplish. And I hope you are able to do the same. So I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Think a little bit about what resonated with you in the conversation that I just had with Kat Dunn, and maybe journal or reflect on the things that you want to incorporate into your journey, and that you can share with your family and friends as you're navigating this space. This has been another episode of Unlocking the Club. Again, I'm your host, Angela Taylor. We drop an episode every Wednesday, so tune in for our upcoming episodes. If you want to continue these conversations, we have a page over on Facebook called the Code Breakers Lounge, where we continue to discuss some of the learnings and insights from our amazing guests and the conversations that we're having. So find us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, stay in the conversation, let us know what you're enjoying. And until next time, be well.
Thanks for listening to Unlocking the Club. If this conversation resonated with you, subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or your favorite streaming platform so that you can experience every episode. And follow us on social media. where you'll hear about future guests, access special features, and connect with this amazing community. Head on over there and let us know how you are unlocking the club. Until next time, peace.